Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our first brokerage brainstorm. I'm Bondalyn Jolly, and I'm the VP of Marketing at Elevate and the Managing Partner of 365. And I have the great pleasure today to introduce Frank Chimento, our VP of Brokerage Development, and Mike Martella, our VP of Brokerage Sales. Combined, these two gentlemen have over 30 years in the real estate industry, working with brokerages, consulting, helping them grow, overcome challenges, needs fulfillment. It's amazing. And we're so excited to be introducing this series today. Gentlemen, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Bondalyn. And that all that experience, I think, unfortunately, all of that experience combined with me and Mike, it still doesn't get us a free latte at Starbucks. We still have to pay the same $5 as everybody else. But it has helped us learn a lot about what brokerages are dealing with over the years and be able to share best practices. And so that is the whole point of this quick webinar today, is to really introduce an 8-week series that Mike and I are going to be doing together, just really diving in a little bit below the surface with brokerages, especially the independent brokerages, trying to help them understand, what the gaps are in their business and, what the solutions are out there. And, Mike, so happy to have you, here with us. And you and I have worked together in previous places in this industry. But I was talking to you earlier. What would you say, just right off the top, what are the top 3 things that you hear brokerages telling you every day that they're struggling with?
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be here. I think the first the 3 things that I hear often is lead conversion is a big challenge. I think recruiting is also a challenge that I hear often, and then the other piece is broker profitability. I think with margins shrinking every day, it's getting more and more difficult for brokerages to be able to be profitable. So when you look at those 3 things, those are the 3 things that I continue to hear from just about every broker that I talk to every day.
Yeah, and Bondalyn, I know you're gonna. I think you're gonna, if I'm not mistaken, you're gonna come back and help us do some Q&A and stuff here toward the end, right?
Yeah, so let me just cover a couple of logistics. I love that you jumped right in because I know you guys are so excited, but let me just talk to the audience for 2 seconds here. So Frank and Mike have some poll questions they're going to be asking you. And so those will pop up on your screen. Please, respond to those poll questions. Take the time to make your selections. It really helps us to understand, what you're looking to learn and gain from this entire experience. So please participate. Also, if you have questions for Frank and Mike, we're going to address them at the end of their discussion, but at any time during their presentation, please feel free to put those into the questions tab in your panel, and I'll pop back in at the end and help moderate those. And lastly, yes, we are recording this, so if you miss part of this, don't worry. We will send out a recording link at the end of this and make this available to you. Gentlemen, I am dropping off. Happy conversations. Just let me know when you want me to come back in and do some Q&A with you.
You got it. Thanks, Bondalyn. And Bondalyn does an incredible job with our creative services agency, which has been really phenomenal for the independent brokerages that they don't have in-house graphic designers or marketing departments, and being able to do custom stuff. I know, Mike, you've got a couple of clients right now taking advantage of that. How's that been for a couple of your customers that are needing that extra, that kind of focused branding or marketing that is unique to them?
Well, I think in mentioning one of the challenges that brokerages are faced with every day, recruiting, and naturally there are brokerages that are out looking to create specific recruiting campaigns to target the right agents. And so a lot of times when we speak with brokerages and they're looking to do something a little bit more in depth to be able to target the right agents, come up with some sort of recruiting branding campaigns, Bondalyn and her group have been phenomenal in working with each of those customers to identify the right messaging, identify the right group of agents with the right skill set. And so from that perspective, from a recruiting perspective, we've really been able to get very strategic with a lot of our customers through our agency, and they're having some very, very significant results as a result of that.
Yeah, that's good. And I think right off the bat, Mike, I want to hit a poll question, just because look, the purpose of this webinar is to introduce an 8-week series that we're going to be doing. And so we would love for you to sign up, subscribe to it. It's totally free. It's videos that will we're going to send them to you. But it's an opportunity for us to break topics down that brokerages are struggling with or dealing with, and talk about them in depth. And we're going to pull the curtain back and reveal some of the best practices that are going on with customers. And, Mike, you and I have been working for, as Bonald said, 30 years combined. Every brokerage brand, every franchise brand, small ones, mom and pops, large ones. I mean, there's not many things you and I haven't heard. Would you agree with that? That, from brokerages, I mean, this just kind of what they're dealing with every day.
Yeah, it doesn't matter the size of the brokerage. Like I said, I mean, I shared those three challenges, and those come from large enterprise brokerages to the mom and pop to the medium-sized brokerages. They're all faced with the same thing. So,
Right.
there hasn't been many things that you and I haven't tried to tackle and really create solutions around.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and start out with a poll, because this really is, this 8-week series, we've got some topics in mind that we want to discuss, but I want to make sure that we're kind of on point with what the brokers would like to have discussed or go more into depth to. So Aaron, I know you're back there behind the scenes kind of helping us and pulling up the poll questions, but if you could pull up that first poll question. And that question is, what brokerage topics are most important to discuss? And we just wanted an opportunity for you to, you can click as many of these that make sense to you. If there's something else that we don't have that you really are thinking, hey, I'd really love to hear some conversation around that, type it in the chat window or in the comments, and let us know what it is, and we'll leave that up there for just a second. But one of the things, Mike, you mentioned it as far as the top 3 is recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this has been something that I'm super passionate about. I've done a lot of recruiting and have done work with brokerages for decades now on helping them recruit agents. That is the lifeblood of every brokerage. And in fact, I remember even when I worked with one of the large franchise brands, they used to say, quite frankly, all the time, they weren't even in the real estate business. They were in the real estate agent recruiting business. And they were right. And so from that perspective, I just wanted to mention that, and Mike, you're dealing on the ground level every day with our broker customers. But even globally, would you say recruiting is, what's the biggest challenge? Identifying the agents, or would you say it comes down more on that relationship building, rapport building side, trying to build some kind of connection with these people in order to really properly present that value proposition?
I think it's the latter, right? It's easy to identify an agent that you want to recruit, whether it's a profile of agent, years of experience, number of transactions, sales volume. But really what it comes down to, and this is just, relationship 101, right, is just making sure that you're building the right relationship, you're building rapport, you're having that connection so that they see that what your value that you bring to them is something that's going to resonate with them. And I think that's just the biggest challenge. There's so many companies that are out there targeting agents that you're targeting, and how do you differentiate yourself? How do you get them to see that the value you're delivering or providing to them is better than what the other 10 brokerages are coming at them with? So and you mentioned your experience. That's something that you have a ton of experience with in helping brokerages really refine that rapport and refine how they can build that rapport with their recruits.
Yeah, I think look, this has been my thing for decades. It's really interesting, and I'm going from even the franchising side. People that start real estate companies, they typically were really good real estate agents. They were really fantastic salespeople. They were really good at building relationships and having that connection with their customers. For some reason, when they become a broker owner or they start owning or operating their own brokerage, somehow they forget about that relationship building process and that sales skill, quite frankly, of really going out and recruiting other agents. And so we're seeing it right now with our customers because, look, obviously we provide software, we provide technology tools, but I think even more than that is we give ourselves to our customers. I mean, we're spending time getting under the hood and talking to them about, hey, have you considered these 5 ideas of how to recruit somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Have you considered doing some of these, or putting yourself through some workshops to really make sure that you or your recruiters or your managers is there a systematic process that they're following to go through the recruiting process, building relationship building, recruiting? It's not a one call close. I always say it's a process, not an event. And, look, we all know it. We've all been there. Every broker hearing us today has had that agent that they thought would never leave them. And one day that agent just got upset about something. And it's at that moment when somebody else is easy, it makes it easier for someone else to recruit them. And so we try to consult brokerages all the time is be aware of that relationship you're building, nurturing that relationship, building and maintaining that rapport, because there is going to come a day when that agent's broker upsets them or something happens in that brokerage office that they don't like, and you want to be the person that's there to say, come over here, it's different, or you're special, to me over here. Does that make sense, Mike? I mean, it's like I feel like the recruiting game is like brokerage dating 101 or something like that, right?
It is. Well, I think recruiting, lead conversion, it has a very similar theme, right? We live in a world where it's immediate gratification. And you target somebody or you get a lead and you expect that person to make a decision to come to your brokerage, or you expect that lead to convert immediately. And the reality is, as you said, it's definitely not a one call close. It takes time to build that relationship. So I think setting the right expectations around that, it can be a little frustrating, but if you've got the right process, the right messaging, the right rapport, all that work that you put in is going to ultimately pay off.
And I think, the timing of this series is really good because, it just so happens that December and January are the #1 and #2 months of agent migration in the industry. And it's been that way for more than a decade. Mm-hmm. So in the months of December and the month of January, more agents make a shift or change brokerages in those 2 months than in the other 10 months combined. That's how much movement happens from a recruiting perspective. So, it could be good timing if you need to just kind of sharpen your skills a little bit. Aaron, I don't know if you've got any results, but did you get any results from that first poll question? I'd love to find out if we had any of that stuff. I don't know if you can show that. Okay, so recruiting 100%. Wow. Okay, so we're on that. That brings us right to the next poll question. That I'd really like to throw out there is, what are your recruiting goals for 2021? And put a couple little options down here because not every brokerage is trying to just grow immensely. Some are trying to maintain their status quo, or look, how many times do we talk to brokers that say, I don't want to be managing or herding a bunch of cats. I kind of want to keep it, my 25 agent boutique firm or 10 agents, but let us know what your recruiting goals are for 2021. Are you looking to add less than 10 new agents, net? I'm talking about a net, gain at the end of the year, because there's always attrition. Are you looking to go more into that 11 to 20 new agents next year? Or are you looking at really, some hyper growth and say, I want to add more than 20 agents, in the next year? That would be some good information to know. And Mike, when we talk about recruiting, mm-hmm. One of the things that we've done, and I want to get your perspective on it from the interaction you've had with some of the broker customers that we've worked with. Okay. But we were the first ones and really the only ones that have built in an entire recruiting module into the platform, which allows agents or brokerages not only to identify agents based on production, transaction size, what types of homes they focus on, but also to be able to then put them into relationship building programs. Mm-hmm. Now, you've got customers that have been using our platform. What's some of the general feedback that you've gotten? And I'm not looking for a testimonial. Yeah. I talk to you every day about it, so I know. But what's some of the general feedback that you get from folks that are being able to utilize tools to help them with the recruiting?
Well, being that it's all part of the same platform, it's been able to help streamline their process, right? I mean, one of the biggest challenges is that most brokerages have multiple pieces of technology. This is all part of one platform. It's streamlined within the CRM with relationship and rapport building messaging. So, it's just been really easy and streamlined for them to use. The other thing is that a lot of these folks have been, utilizing different pieces of data to go after, whether it be through the MLS, whether it be past transactions. And so they're spending time in all these different places, and now they can go to one place to identify all of that. So it's a time saver as well. The feedback has been really great. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of services in the industry that provide this. And The feedback that a lot of our customers have had has been phenomenal. And in fact, the feedback we've received has made the program even better with a lot of the innovations that we've made.
That's right. We put a lot of things in there, from things like this, and that's really another purpose of this series and this webinar is we're getting direct feedback from brokerages saying, hey, I've got all these tools, but none of them are doing this particular thing. Mm-hmm. And how many times have you and I said, well, we can do that. We've got that data. We didn't know you needed it displayed or aggregated or provided back to you in that way. And so we can do that for you. And I think that's a good thing. You know, the other thing too with recruiting, and this was something that used to frustrate me way back when I was running the region for Remax, was, you know, for some reason, the industry has this idea in its head that brokerages recruit based on, you know, they're looking for agents that do a particular GCI. That's not been my experience. Mm-hmm. You and I talk about this a lot. I live on Clearwater Beach, right? If I had a brokerage and I had the condo queen who was out here selling all the luxury condos, and she got mad at me one day and left, I'm not trying to recruit any agent. I got to go find another condo specialist that focuses on luxury properties on the beach because I've got a hole in my business. Right. And so we put some things together to say, how do you do that? How do you go and easily find out who are those people, you know, specifically listing condos, you know, 15 of them or more a year at this minimum price point or higher, you know, and how do you do that easily and quickly? But then beyond that, how do I build a relationship with that person? Mike, if you were that person and I didn't know you, other than I knew you, you know, in a remote way because I'm in the industry, you're in the industry, I see your name, I know you're doing a lot of business, I wish you worked for me, but I don't really know you. Mm-hmm. Boy, I've got to go figure out how to bridge that gap. You know, I've got to go build a relationship with you and connect with you. And that's not always a, hey, why don't you come have coffee with me and let me talk about recruiting you? You know, that usually doesn't work actually. But, you know, those are some of the things that we want to dive more into depth on and find out, you know, what people are wanting to do from a recruiting perspective. We want to get under the hood. We want to have that conversation with you. The other thing we talk about a lot, you mentioned lead conversion. Yeah. Mike, talk about that a little bit from a standpoint of, I think I know what you're going to say, mm-hmm. but for the brokerages that are paying attention, what seems to be the biggest sticking points with lead conversion? Now, I'm talking about lead conversion from a perspective of the broker is actually pulling out his or her wallet and spending money to generate leads on behalf of the agents, then handing these leads over to agents, whether they're taking a referral fee or not, but they're handing these leads over to the agent and then they're sitting back and waiting for that return on investment. What do you feel like is the biggest sticking point, or what do you hear over and over and over again?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that make a good that sets you up to be successful to convert leads. And first off, it's your process, right? What are you doing? How quickly are you following up? What are you saying? Your technology, right? Do you have a system that can help do some of the heavy lifting to automate things as follow-up to these consumers? Do you have a system that's going to incubate them? Then you also have to have the right agents who are willing to not to make one or two attempts and deem the lead as a bad lead.
Right, they just give up. They give up. Yep.
It happens all the time. And then the third thing that I see frequently happening is that when you lack a process, when you lack the right technology, when you lack the agent following up a few times, then what happens is that all of that feedback gets bubbled up to the broker, yeah. And the agents say, you know what, these leads aren't good, and at the end of the day, they stop working them. The broker feels like they've wasted money, and the real reason for all this is that I think the expectation is that these leads are going to convert immediately. Some will, yeah, but right, the reality is that when you look at a consumer, let's say it's a $500,000 property they're looking for. Well, if you were to spend $500,000, are you going to spend or work with that person that you first talked to? You've got to feel comfortable. You've got to feel like that person is adding value. You've got to feel like that person understands what you need. That you've got to feel like that person who you're talking to, that there's some sort of connection, meaning that they understand what you're looking for. They have knowledge, they add value. And it's when that all comes together that you're able to really take that from a lead to a transaction. But there's a lot that happens to get to that point. So, I think the expectation for lead generation, conversion, you really have to have the right expectations, because you're gonna be set up to fail. Not if you don't expect that it's going to take some time for these leads to convert.
Yeah, and I think there's also something else too. I think there's this fine line that brokerages have to walk. On the one hand, you're dealing with independent contractors.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them got out of corporate America because they didn't want to be held accountable
Right.
anymore. They don't want somebody telling them what to do, and they don't want to be micromanaged. They want to have their own freedom and flexibility in their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got that working at odds with, hey, I'm the broker. I pulled out money. I've invested it. I got to get a return on that. So I have to have some accountability in place. And so there's this real struggle between, how do we put accountability measures in place? How do we manage and measure things? But also, how do we do that in a way that doesn't make the independent contractor agent feel like an employee, or that, that I'm the boss and they're the W-2 kind of person. And that's been a challenge. But I think, the good news is, I think we've been able to help a lot of brokerages kind of understand how to tightrope walk or dance around some of those dynamics that take place and this, by the way, this is in every brokerage in the country, other than maybe the one or two that are out there doing W-2 employee-based type business models. But with all of the typical real estate business models, this is something that is not unique. It's across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody deals with that, and I think that's part of the conversation that we're going to have. Is how do you, one of the sessions that I'm going to devote time to is this lead conversion, and a lot of that is mindset, process, philosophy, setting expectations. How do you put accountability structures in place with independent contractors that'll tell you to go pound sand if they feel like you're holding their hand too much, and then the other thing, Mike, is, and you and I talk about this. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we sell technology to brokerages. We're trying to track down brokers and get their attention and find out if we can help them, and so, but do you want to be on the phone dialing for dollars and hearing no all day long? No, you don't. You've been doing this for a long time. You did that 20 years ago. Right. You did that. But you don't want to do that today. Neither do real estate agents. We've got people in our company that help us identify people that have a need. And then we usually pick up the ball somewhere down the road, and we start building a relationship, and we go in and find out, hey, can we actually help these folks? If we can help them, great. If we can't, I've heard you on the phone making recommendations for other products in the industry because you felt like, hey, I can't do what you need, but I know this company that can. I'll help you with it, because one day we know they may come back around. And I'm saying that to draw the parallel of, I think it's important for us to be able to help brokerages understand that there are certain activities and tasks that are critically important to success in the real estate industry that your agents just flat out don't want to do.
Right. They
just flat out don't want to do them. So if your ROI is dependent on them doing those tasks, you're kind of behind the eight ball a little bit, So we got to help you uncover some systems, processes, maybe some different approaches to say, how do we protect your return and also entice or influence your agents to do the kinds of things that they don't naturally want to do? Does that make sense? I mean, I'm probably confusing that a little bit because it's kind of complex.
Well, it is, but I think, on the topic of lead conversion, if we all know that the agents aren't going to do it, right, or they're not going to follow up enough times, one of the recommendations that we always make is hire an ISA, hire somebody that's going to pound the phones, that's going to follow up. And then when that consumer is ready to go out with an agent, instead of having the agent follow up, hand it off to them and let them go out and close the transaction. Right. So that, that's just an example of some of the recommendations that we make so that you can be successful converting some of these leads.
It's about understanding the agents and helping them. I always say, all the agents are on the bus, but some are in the wrong seat.
Mm-hmm.
There are just some skill sets that some people have that other people don't have. And you need to understand that as a broker.
Sure.
I use sports analogies a lot, but I'll use one that, in the real estate world, I was working with a big franchising group, and the leader of that organization was just one of the most dynamic public speakers ever. Get up on stage in front of 20,000, 30,000 agents and just absolutely have everybody at the edge of their seat. One-on-one, this person was horrible. to sit down and have a conversation with. So that was not a good environment to put that person in. It wasn't going to go well. Same thing holds true, I think, with lead conversion with agents. I think a lot of times brokers are just saying, hey, all my agents are equal, so let me just send out all these leads. And I always hear this word about fairness, or equity, or I want to make sure my agents don't get upset but the reality, this isn't about being fair. This is about getting a return on investment. And you got to you got to throw the ball to the receiver that can catch it. I mean, that's just kind of the reality. Would you say that's accurate? I mean, that's a tough thing to navigate as a broker.
Well, I mean, I kind of look at it as like the T-ball methodology, right? You don't put everyone in just because they get a shot to play. You want to make sure if you're investing money in lead generation that's coming out of your pocket, you've got to get a return. And so making sure you've got the right agents following up. It's not unfair to send them to the people that are going to convert them. If other agents in the office want leads, then they have to increase their skill set so that they can convert leads. So I think you've got to be strategic in how you're managing this process. I think you've got to be strategic in also who you're sending the leads to. But to your point about fairness, I mean, that's something that that's a conversation that we have every day with brokers. That in order to be fair, doesn't mean it's going to. If you want to be fair, it doesn't mean you're going to get the right results. You need to make sure that you have the right people managing these leads, working these leads, because if you do, the return will be there.
You're going to win. And I think the best news to that, Mike, is we've got clients right now that have figured this out.
Sure.
And they're doing it at a really high level, and they're doing it in a way that their agents actually love. They're engaging in, and we're going to be able to share those, those ideas. And that again is why we're encouraging you, for those of you that are on the webinar today, to sign up to make sure that you get our 8. I think we're doing 8 sessions. We may end up doing more. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, if it's something that people are getting value out of, we'll keep doing it. But obviously, we don't want to waste time either. If there's no value, what's the point?
Exactly.
I got better things to do and so does everybody listening to my voice. If there's something that you're not getting value in, go do something else. But we want you to sign up and get this video series. I'm going to go with another poll question here real quick. Actually, Aaron, if you've got, and I keep saying Aaron, he's the invisible guy behind the scenes that's driving everything for us. Thanks, Aaron, for your help on this. But Aaron, did you get some poll results on, we asked the question of what the recruiting goals were. So 60% said less than 10 new agents, and 40% said 11 to 20 new agents. Okay, very good. That's good. And then let's go with another poll question here is, I really wanted to kind of get some feedback from the folks that are on here now. Is what do people want to gain the most by participating, in this video series? And if there's something else that is not here, put it in a note or put it in a chat window, because we'd love to know, what's your expectation. Look, this is a little bit of an unmolded piece of clay. Is we want to share 30 years of experience working with brokerages of all sizes, shapes, and regions of the country, and we want to share the best practices and really create almost a little bit of a mastermind with brokerages, especially those independent brokerages. There's just something, we just have a really strong passion for that independent mom and pop, if you want to call it that broker, owner, operator. Those are the folks that are the lifeblood, in my opinion. They're the lifeblood of our industry. And yet they have the least amount of tools available to them. And they're trying to compete daily with the behemoths and the big box brands that are pounding their chest every day and saying how we're putting $3 billion into this technology. And the reality is there's actually better technology available in the industry, but a lot of the independent brokerages don't know about it yet. So, we're excited to do that. So let us know kind of what you hope to gain, from this series, and we'll do our best to fill the content with the things that are going to give you the most value. Mike, when I asked you early, what are the 3 things you hear the most often? The other thing you said was profitability. And expand on that a little bit on, obviously, I mean, we're in business, everybody's in business to make money, hopefully. Nobody here is running a real estate charity, so they want to make money. But what do you feel like, what are the things that you're hearing as far as the pressures that are hitting brokers that are encroaching on that profitability or making it tougher?
Well, I think the demanding splits that a lot of agents are getting from different models in the industry, right? That's a big problem.
Right, sure.
The fact that you've got to provide technology, maybe you have to provide leads, you've got to provide all these tools to agents in an effort to be competitive.
Right.
So that's obviously costly. You've got those are really the two things that I think are driving that. But you had COVID. Obviously, the industry has really rebounded from that. But there are also ways that you can monetize certain things that you're doing, and I think this is something that often gets ignored: is the monetization of lead generation, monetization of technology that has helped a lot of our brokers become more profitable, right?
Sure.
So I think a lot of times when people look at lead generation or investing in technology, that it has to be a bottom line expense. And for many of our customers, that's not the case. They're actually able to create a profit center so that if they're providing these tools, they're also able to do it where it's not costing the brokerage any money. And that's something that often gets ignored.
I think that's the key for me. And you and I have joked about this many times in the conversations that we have a lot. And you and I are always brainstorming and sharing ideas about what our broker customers are talking to us about. But one of the things that I find myself saying to you a lot is that seems obvious. We've been in the industry for so long. You hear things so often. It seems obvious. But how many times have I said, or you found out that this thing that seems obvious never dawned on this particular broker we're talking to?
Yeah.
Like something really simple to fix a problem they have, they never thought about it. And in our mind, we hear it every day, so we think it's just commonplace. But those are some of the things that we like to share with people is, hey, have you considered doing X, Y, and Z? Because we've got these 10 other brokers that were having the same problem you have.
Right.
And now they're on top of it now. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I mean, there's just that opportunity to share best practices about how other brokers are finding areas of profitability and squeezing additional margins out of what is currently kind of a challenge.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's a conversation that is part of every single interaction with brokerages that we have today. I mean, cost is always a factor, right? And no matter what you do.
Sure.
But if you're able to recoup more than what you paid, a portion of what you've paid, and use that for other tools in the brokerage, or buy leads and have referral fees that cover more than the cost of what you're investing.
Right.
That's only going to be helpful for the brokerage so that you can do other things to be able to keep your agents retained and also recruit new agents. So it's about that differentiation, and having that conversation every day and talking to other brokerages. We're able to take those things that we've learned, best practices, and share them with any new customer that we talk to.
And I think that's why I'm so excited about this series, because I mean, obviously there's 14,000 webinars going on every day for agents, and how can you generate more leads or do this better or do that better. I never hear anything focused on the brokerage. I don't hear very much being shared with the brokerage. And I'm looking at it as, I just think of it as kind of common sense that I hope there's going to be some value in this. I hope brokers can, and I'm saying this, Mike, because you and I get to hear the great feedback. I mean, we've got, how many of our broker customers would you say they're not even customers anymore? They're like friends.
They're like family.
They're like family. I mean, we talk with them. They tell us things that are going on in their company, has nothing to do with the technology service that we provide with them, for them. But yet we're engaged in these conversations and we're talking about these things. And maybe you and I are just gluttons for punishment. I don't know, but I know I love doing it. I know you love doing it too. So, in general, what do you hope to gain from some of the brokerages that participate in this? What kind of feedback would you like to get from folks? And I'm hitting you with you and I didn't prepare these questions, so I know I'm hitting you, but I know we want to give a lot of value.
Mm-hmm.
What if you said, hey, here's something that I'd love to get from brokerages and interaction and communication? What kind of things would you like for them to share with you or to be vulnerably honest about?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's the understanding what some of the gaps or challenges that they're faced with today. I mean, that's going to help us be able to help them, and sharing what their struggles are, sharing what's not working, what's working, so that we can we probably have a customer that felt the same way and had a similar challenge that we can, find a solution for and help them either recruit more agents, retain more agents, increase revenue. We've seen and heard just about everything. So just better understanding the dynamics of the brokerage and what they're really challenged with is something that I hope to learn so that we can help solve those problems and create a long-term partnership.
Yeah. And I would probably add to that, like for me, I think it's brutal honesty.
Hmm.
It's that candor, it's that transparency. I mean, how many times do we sit down with a broker and it's awkward, it's uncomfortable because we start asking them very pointed questions about their business and they don't know the answers. And they feel embarrassed because they know deep down they probably need to know these things and they don't. But I'll tell you what's awesome is when someone says to me, Frank, you're calling me out, but I don't know the answer to that. I know I should, because that helps me to say, okay, this person doesn't have access to the data probably in a quick, easy, manageable way to even have that information. If I can help provide that data, I'm going to help that brokerage make smarter, faster, better business decisions. So to me, I think it is just getting that real genuine, authentic honesty from the broker about what keeps them up at night.
Right.
I mean, if I don't know what's keeping them up at night, I don't even know if we can solve that challenge. But if I do, chances are you and I can we know somebody in the industry that's probably got a solution. So, that's something that I'm looking forward to getting into it and getting out of it from the brokers. Let's go to another poll question, and I'm pulling it up over here. I just lost my poll question here. I want to find out, is technology and software, let's go to that question number 4. Is technology and software part of your brokerage's offering to your agents? Really like to know, if that's a part of what you're providing today. Mike, of the brokerages that you talk with,
Mm-hmm.
if you were to put it in percentages, what percentage of them are currently like providing a full suite of technology tools, or what percentage is providing like some of them, or what percentage is providing none at all?
It's probably 50-50. I see there are some brokerages that really just leave it to their agents to do everything, whether it be technology, lead generation, and naturally that could be based on their business model as well. But a lot of companies that we've worked with that ultimately partnered with us, they didn't provide anything. And when you're looking to recruit agents, you've got to be competitive, right? Because the big brands are providing the technology, they're providing good splits, and in an effort they may provide lead generation,
right?
But in an effort to be competitive, you've got to check that box. If your competitors are providing technology, you will have a hard time recruiting agents from the competition if
Right.
you're not providing those tools. So if I don't have the data in front of me, but it's probably 50-50. 50% of the brokerages we talk to provide tools today, and then 50% of them, don't provide much at all, if anything. So
Right.
There's a huge opportunity that we've been able to help with a lot of the customers that we work with.
Yeah, and I think what goes, I mean, look, the data doesn't lie. Sometimes I wish the data lied, but it doesn't lie. And the data says that the typical real estate agent is managing 12 different pieces of technology
Right.
to operate their business. The typical brokerage is managing between 15 and 20 separate, disparate pieces of technology. That information isn't being shared. The data is not getting aggregated. They're not getting the key performance indicators that they need. And it's really crazy. I mean, Mike, you and I come from some backgrounds within our industry where we had access to all kinds of information.
Right.
And it's insane when you think about a real estate brokerage trying to run a business, and yet they don't have the base level tools to even manage the processes, to even be able to measure it, to find out if it's working. And so I think that's a big issue. And we're seeing more and more that agents are starting to get smart to that. And they're not necessarily always looking for the best of class in every single category. They're looking at it in an aggregate manner and saying, here are the 15 things I have to do just to run my business.
Right.
Which brokerage is going to provide the majority of those things so I don't have to pay for them myself, or I don't have to do it. I mean, would you say that you get that feedback from the agents within the brokerages that you're talking to,
That they have too many tools.
or that they don't have enough that are connected?
Oh, that's the biggest challenge for a lot of agents today. Because at times you'll have communication with the brokerage, then you'll have communication with the agents, and the reality is that they're utilizing all these different systems. They're trying to upload their contacts in one system. You got to share it with a different system. Some of them are paying for multiple systems, and at the end of the day, it becomes very costly, not only from a time perspective, but also becomes costly from just an overall economic perspective, because you're buying all these tools. And part of our value proposition is the fact that we can consolidate a lot of the tools that you're utilizing today with one system, with one username and one password. And that has been a big time saver, cost saver for a lot of our customers. And that's something that we try to uncover during our conversations: is what technology are you using? How many systems do you have? How much is it costing you to do all of this? And consolidating all that in one system for many has been extremely painless, and a time saver and money saver as well.
The other thing too is, like, it's like we were talking about lead conversion. Why would you give leads to an agent that isn't going to do it, or isn't going to do the work? But we look at agent adoption. This is something I'm really passionate about,
Right.
Because as a brokerage, I don't care if we have built the best technology the world has ever seen at Elm Street Technology. If your agents aren't going to adopt it, I would be the first one to tell the brokerage, don't pay it for it. It's a waste of your money. And so, but yet I still see vendors in our space, technology companies, doing things in a manner that really actually prohibits agents from adopting the technology in the first place. And let me give an example of that, Mike, is the CRM, for example, the database. Number one reason that agents don't use brokerage provided databases is because the database isn't protected for the agent. And it's mind blowing that nobody in the industry is doing it this way until we came along and said, first thing we're going to do is protect the contact record details for the agent. Why are we doing that? Simple. Because, Mike, if you're my broker, I might love you. We might be best friends. I might share food off your plate, but I'm not sharing my sphere of influence that I've accrued or, accumulated over 20 years. I'm not sharing that with you because you might irritate me one day and I might leave you. So if you're going to give me a technology system that doesn't protect what's most valuable to me, I'm not using it. Therefore, as a broker, you're not getting the added value of all the tools and the efficiencies and the economies of scale that system is designed to provide for me to grow my business with. And we see this every single day with, I don't want to name other products, but some of the big franchise brands that have partnered up, and we're seeing, 12% adoption rate from the agents. Why? And then we talk to agents and I say, how do you use the program? Well, I only use it for the leads that the broker sends me through it, but I'm not putting my database in there, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't either. I love you, Mike, but I'm not sharing my database with you. Do you hear that? I mean, is agent adoption a really big challenge for brokerages? Because I think it is. And I'm just curious what your feedback is on it.
That's probably the number one reason why brokerages don't want to provide technology for their agents, because they've been burned in the past, right? They've probably given it to the agents. And as we know, if the agents don't have skin in the game, then they're not going to utilize it. But again, that's probably the number one reason that brokerages don't provide the technology, is that the agents don't adopt it. Now, in talking with brokerages that either currently have a current technology provider, naturally one of the questions that we ask is, what's the adoption? And overwhelmingly, you already nailed,
it's horrible.
It stinks, right? So and the reason that is because they don't want to upload their database. And the best thing that we've done, one of the best things that we've done, is give the agent the confidence, knowing that if they upload their database, it's not going to be that the contact record details are not going to be viewed by the brokerage. And that has skyrocketed our adoption within the platform. So,
and I think you've got that. I think you've also got, you and I have talked about this with a couple of our close clients, and it was actually, we got to give credit to our buddy Rob, who's become a really good friend and like family to us. But one of the things that he said was, hey, I can go buy technology anywhere. but the technology is only as good as the people that are employing it, working with my company on it. And he was giving you and I a compliment by saying, you guys actually know what you're talking about. You know the business. So the technology is important, but so are the people that are going to come get engaged with my company and understand what my expected outcome is, understand the nature of what I'm dealing with my crazy group of agents over here, and understand my market that I'm in and the competitive forces I'm dealing with, because your ability to understand how your technology is going to help me overcome these obstacles matters more than the technology itself. Does that make sense? I mean, do you get that sense from brokers that they just are tired of trying to find off the shelf technology? They need something more connected.
Yes, but to your point about knowing the people behind the scenes, I mean, I did before our call. I was on a call with a customer, and they had left a company prior to joining ours. They hired an advertising agency, didn't have a whole lot of experience in the real estate industry.
Mm-hmm.
And his comments to me today, where I've been with you for 6 months, and I've got to tell you that you've blown our world here, and exceeded our expectations based on who we used to work for. So having that experience, not only in the industry, but the people behind it that have had experience working with brokerages or agents that have dealt with real estate technology, that is critically important, because if you don't know who's behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, strategizing, getting everything implemented, trained, that could really have a negative effect on how the program is rolled out, the effects of it.
Oh yeah, no
that
doubt.
was just today, noon, a couple hours ago, I sat with a broker who shared that exact experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you think about brokerages, you think about agents. They always know who that go-to title person is. That in the 11th hour, there's a problem, that person's going to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
That mortgage lender that is going to figure out how to get those people qualified and financed, or whatever the case may be. But I find it interesting that they don't take that kind of regard or that kind of care when soliciting technology solutions, because as I've said to you, and this is something we're going to devote one of the episodes to, business interruption. What I'm finding is when you take a 20 agent brokerage, okay, owner, operator, mom and pop, functioning brokerage, and you say to them, hey, or they go to their agents and say, hey, to you, our 20 agents, we're about to flip our entire technology platform. Everything's going to change. Your CRM, your lead gen, your website, all that stuff. That can be a massive business interruption. Massive. And so understanding what that means and what kind of impact that can have on a company, I think gives us a really good advantage. And we want to talk through that with brokers to find out, hey, how can you mitigate business interruption when you know you're trying to improve your offerings? Because I don't care. Listen, if the best technology tomorrow comes out and we all know and agree it's better than what we're using, it's still difficult to make that transition or make that shift because of the interruption and the chaos that's going to ensue getting to that greener grass, so to speak. And so I think, Mike, we're going to devote an episode to talking about how to mitigate business interruption when you're trying to make improvements, or you're trying to innovate, or you're trying to make, provide more offerings. I mean, do you run into that a lot with brokerages that are saying things to you like, hey, this is great, but let's, or, I hear you say to me, let's roll it out in phases. And why are they saying that? Because they can't disrupt everything. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're always trying to make sure that to limit the business interruption. And look, the good thing is we'll talk about some strategies on how we do that, and how we're successful at it. And naturally, we've refined it over the course of time, and we're at a good place right now where we've got a great process, and our goal is to limit that business interruption. But it's been a lot of these topics that we've talked about today. I'm really looking forward to having more in-depth conversations with each of these. I know we covered a lot of different areas today on the call. But I'm really excited about doing this for the next 8 weeks.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap up here with our last poll question, and I think Bondelin's gonna jump back on and maybe do a little Q&A in case there's some folks that had some questions. But the last poll question is, if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one, consultation with our team, and by team I mean Mike and I handle the brokerages. So if you just, if you want to spend some time, we don't mind. We're happy to talk with folks that are looking for solutions. I'm kind of blunt about this, and I'll just say it as bluntly as I can. is Mike and I have been doing this for so long. We've always said there are two types of brokerages. There are those that want to talk about their challenges and complain about their challenges, and those that actually want to do something to solve them or attempt to solve them. So if you have challenges and you really want to attempt to solve them and get after it, schedule a one-on-one with us, and our team will be happy to talk with you and see what we can do. So Bondlin, I don't know if you've got any other questions that came through or anything like that, but if you want to jump back on, we'll take a couple of questions and then
I am here. You've got questions. And actually, one of the questions is, what kind of information should I have prepared in preparation for a consultation with you?
Just as much, well, like I said before, I mean, if you're talking with Mike and I, we're going to ask you a lot of questions about your brokerage. What are you doing? What's your business model? What are you running? What kind of agents are you recruiting? We're going to ask you a lot of business related questions. And so I would say, come with as much of that information as you have. But if you don't have that information, just be honest with us and say, hey, Frank, I don't know the answer to that. I have no idea, how many leads we generated last year and got handed to agents and got converted. I don't know. That's okay. Because those are, by us asking those kinds of questions and you being honest with us, it really helps us understand, because our questions they're pointed. I mean, we're asking questions based on, we know what our technology solutions can provide and what challenges they can solve. We don't know what challenges you have. Mike, you and I talk about it like a doctor all the time. I mean, it's like, if I've got a cabinet full of pills I can give you, I don't know which one to give you unless I know what's hurting.
Yeah, and I wouldn't, the first meeting is always just a conversation, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't overthink it and think that you have to be prepared. I mean, it's just a conversation about your business, the gaps that you're experiencing, the tools that you're utilizing, the goals that you have, things like that. We dig a little deeper, and if you don't know the information, we'll have another call and we can talk about it then.
Yeah, I think the most important thing, Bondlin, is that it's not a quote unquote sales call. We want to know brokerages that have recognized they've got some pain or some challenges, and they're looking for someone to help them. And so we look at that as, hey, I'm not here to sell you. Number one, I want to try to earn your respect. I want to try to earn and build a reputation or a relationship with you and build some rapport, and then help you uncover what the challenges are. And then if we've got solutions, of course, give us an opportunity to present those to you. If we don't think we can solve a problem for you, we're not trying to fit a round peg in a square hole, so to speak.
So you guys had actually talked about some different business models earlier. You even touched on the concept of the W-2 business model. Are you seeing certain business models that are outperforming others across the brokers that you're working with?
Mike, I'll let you go first on this one because I've got a real strong opinion on this.
So I think the thing that I'm seeing more and more of is that brokerages are offering variety, right? They're trying to cater to whether it be the 100%, the hybrid model, the traditional model, and so they're trying to be a lot of things to everybody. So that's the one trend that I'm seeing across the board with a lot of brokerages.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing, I think Bond on that question was, is there any that stand out as more valuable or performing better than others? And I would say is just what Mike said, is options. The brokerage that is able to be flexible and provide options for different types of individuals. For example, there's a brokerage I'm aware of. They have traditional split models. They have a 100% fee model built in, and they also have a W-2 model for very specific employee-based real estate agents based on what they want, what they're looking for, what the expectations are, and what the outcome is. Now, that brokerage, in my opinion, is absolutely killing it. They're killing it because every single business model in their brokerage has certain expectations attached to it. So the broker is much more likely to pull their wallet out and pay for leads if they're giving them to W-2 employees, because they get to manage that person's time from 9 to 5, right? That's the trade-off for that. Versus, I'm not going to be doing that necessarily for the 100%ers, you know what I mean, that I don't even know if they're going to respond to the phone call. So I'm seeing models like that are becoming more and more prominent. But here's one thing that I think almost every brokerage has overlooked, and I am convinced if every brokerage did this, it would change the life of their brokerage, is none of the brokerages are focusing on long-term opportunities for agents. Meaning, I'm an agent, I come to work for you, 20 years I retire, what do I have? I have my database. And I'm seeing brokerages get creative with starting REIT groups and allowing agents to participate in throwing money in the till after each commission, and they're going out and buying fixer-uppers in the community, and they're using that as a profit center, and they're feeding that back to the agents that participate in their program. I'm seeing brokerages get really, really creative, and I think some of that spawned out of the the KW whatever multi-level model and EXP's variation. I'm seeing brokerages getting really smart with some of these things. And agents are saying, hey, that's getting my attention. So I think there's a lot of, and that's something I'd love to explore some more of those ideas, because I think there's some really good, clever ideas that are starting to take place. And I think some of the best ideas haven't even been thought of yet, Bonlin.
That's awesome. So that kind of leads in, there's another question. So you're kind of touching on, your thoughts about offerings in terms of the business model, but what offerings do you think in terms of technology should brokerages be offering their agents by default?
Oh, wow, by default.
You want to go first, Mikey?
Well, I mean, I think, every agent should have a website. Every agent should have a CRM. Every agent should have, the opportunity to have email, text marketing to be able to stay in contact with their sphere. There should be automated follow-up. Those are some of the key areas that I think every brokerage should be offering to their agents, because it's core to their business, right? I mean, not every consumer that they're working with today isn't ready to buy. And so rather than having to spend their time following up, there are systems like ours that can do a lot of the heavy lifting, so that when consumers are ready, the system itself was doing the heavy lifting, and they're not spending the same time they would have 20 years ago.
And Bonlin, I might be dating myself, but my first car had crank windows. And I remember how excited I was when I upgraded my car and it had electric windows. And now it's like, I think agents are getting to that place too. Nobody in their right mind would consider buying an automobile today that didn't have electric windows. I mean, that's sort of like, that just comes with the car. That's kind of like the tires and the engine. And I think when you start looking at what agents' expectations are, I think those differ a little bit from what a brokerage's expectation or needs should be. So you say what should be required? If I'm a brokerage, I'm making sure that every agent is using a CRM. Period. Hopefully it's the one that I provide, but I need every agent using a CRM. Now, the reason that's important to a brokerage is I can't make good business decisions if I can't measure what's going on, what's successful, what's not successful. Bonlin, you're our head of marketing. I mean, weekly we have calls where you go through mounds of data telling us which marketing campaign performed well, which one didn't. Let's kill that one. Let's do more. How does a brokerage become more and more profitable with shrinking margins if they don't have the ability to measure the output or the capacity that their agents are creating? So I think CRM is number one. I would say probably the IDX website, that search opportunity for the consumer, is number two. And then from there, I think there's a lot of little things that you've got to get into. What do your agents need? What do they do every day? What is the value of their time, and what are they spending the majority of their time on? As a brokerage, my job is to take the low dollar an hour tasks off your plate, Bonlin, so you can focus on the highest and best use of your time. That's what I would say that's my responsibility as a brokerage. I'm your business partner. I'm not your big brother. I'm big partner. So my job is to figure out, how can I make Bonlin more successful? Well, she succeeds by shaking hands and kissing babies. So everything you're doing that's not related to that, I want to try and figure out how much of that can I take off your plate. And that's what I would say is the most important technology to provide.
That's great, because there's other questions that are about automation. There's questions about recruitment automation. And so I think what we're just going to have to do is encourage our audience to make sure that they subscribe to this video series. In the chat, everybody, I put in a link. It is boss.tryelevate.com. When you go to that lander, there's a pop-up where you can just put in your contact information, the email address. And as we release this series over the next 8 weeks, you'll receive an email notification and you can dial in, because I know that Frank and Mike are going to be digging into all of those other questions and topics that you guys are asking. And for those of you that had very, very specific and pointed questions, I've already responded back to you, and I'll let you know that I'm going to connect you with Frank or Mike so that you guys can have a one-on-one. Gentlemen, we're at the hour mark. Any final closing statements from the two of you?
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, look, I'm really excited about working with everyone and sharing this series. I mean, I had a lot of fun today, and I think it's going to be a great series with a lot of information and a lot of ways that we can help your brokerage. Yeah,
and I was going to say too, Bonlin, is something, brokerages are busy. Brokers, broker owners are very busy. Time is at a premium. And so I would say that, I don't want people to get concerned. Like, we're not going to be sending in hour-long video, every week. These may be, one of them might be 9 or 10 minutes. I mean, we might focus on something very specific and just dive into some nuts and bolts. This is designed to give you value and designed to give you some honest feedback. And it's something that can grow. It can expand or contract based on the needs and the value that the brokerages are getting from it. And we just want participation. And I appreciate everybody that attended today. It's awesome.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your brain power as always. Everyone, thank you for your time today. We'll see you at boss.tryelevate.com to subscribe to this series. And gentlemen, we'll get ready to release the next round this next week.
Sounds great. Thanks for your help, Bonlin. And
take care, everybody.
Thanks, Aaron.